I learned my lesson about HOA boards the day I watched Karen Henderson deliberately park her Mercedes SUV across the only plowed access route in our subdivision during the worst blizzard Minnesota had seen in 15 years. My name is Ethan Reid, and I had been running a small snow removal business in Maple Grove for the past 8 years. The work was seasonal but lucrative enough to support my family through the year if I managed it right. I had 3 plow trucks, 2 smaller tractors for sidewalks and driveways, and a crew of 5 guys who had been with me since the beginning. We serviced commercial properties mostly, but I also maintained contracts with several homeowners associations around the northern Minneapolis suburbs. The Willowbrook Estates HOA was one of my oldest clients, and up until that February morning, I thought we had a pretty good relationship. The storm had started Thursday evening, dumping snow at a rate of 3 inches per hour. By Friday morning, we were looking at nearly 2 feet of accumulation with drifts reaching 5 and 6 feet in some areas. The temperature had dropped to -8 degrees, and the wind chill made it feel like -30. This was serious weather, the kind that killed people if they got stranded or lost power for too long. I had been up all night with my crew, working through our commercial contracts first because those paid penalties if we did not clear parking lots by opening time. By 7 in the morning, we finished the strip mall on Elm Creek Boulevard and headed to Willowbrook Estates. The subdivision had 230 homes spread across a maze of curved streets and cul-de-sacs. The main entrance fed into a primary loop road that connected to all the smaller residential streets. My contract specified that I would clear the main loop and all primary streets first, then work my way through the secondary roads and cul-de-sacs in order of priority. We had done this dozens of times over the years. The routine was smooth and everyone knew how it worked. I pulled my truck through the entrance at 7:15, my headlights cutting through the blowing snow. Behind me, Jake and Marcus followed in the other 2 plows, with Tommy and Devin bringing up the rear in the tractors. The plan was simple and the same as always. I would take the eastern section of the main loop, Jake would handle the west, and Marcus would start clearing the connector streets. The tractors would follow behind us, widening the paths and clearing approaches to driveways. I was about halfway through my first pass when I noticed a dark blue Mercedes GLS parked directly in the middle of Oak Ridge Drive, which was the main artery connecting the northern section of homes to the primary loop. The SUV sat at an angle, blocking both lanes completely. I slowed down and squinted through the blowing snow. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. I pulled up as close as I could and climbed out of my truck. The wind hit me like a physical force, and I had to lean into it to make progress toward the Mercedes. I knocked on the window. The driver rolled it down about 2 inches, and I recognized Karen Henderson immediately. She was the HOA president, a woman in her mid-50s with short blonde hair that she kept in that severe bob cut that seemed to be standard issue for neighborhood busybodies. She wore a puffy white winter coat and had her phone in her hand. "Morning, Mrs. Henderson," I said, raising my voice over the wind. "I need to get through here. Can you move your vehicle?" She looked at me with an expression that I had seen before on difficult customers, a mix of superiority and manufactured patience. "Mr. Reid, I am parked here specifically to speak with you. I have been trying to reach you since 6 o'clock this morning." I pulled my phone from my pocket and checked it. Sure enough, there were 4 missed calls from a number I had saved as Willowbrook HOA. "Sorry, I have been in the trucks all night. The engine noise makes it hard to hear. What can I help you with? I really need to keep moving, though." "This weather is dangerous." Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. That is precisely what I need to discuss. The board held an emergency meeting last night, and we have decided to implement new snow removal protocols. I emailed you the updated contract at 5:30 this morning. I stared at her. Mrs. Henderson, I have been plowing since midnight. I have not had time to check email. Can we discuss this later? People need to get out if there is an emergency. This will only take a moment, she said, her tone suggesting that she had no intention of moving until she got what she wanted. The new protocol requires that you clear all streets in alphabetical order, starting with streets beginning with the letter A. This ensures fairness and equal treatment for all residents. I must have looked at her like she had grown a second head because she repeated herself, slower this time, as if I was the one being unreasonable. Alphabetical order, Mr. Reed. That means you will start with Aspen Lane, then move to Birch Street, then Cedar Court, and so on. The board feels this is the most equitable approach. The wind gusted hard enough to rock both vehicles. I could feel my face going numb despite my balaclava. Mrs. Henderson, that does not make any sense. We clear by priority. Main roads first so emergency vehicles can get through, then residential streets based on traffic patterns and access. That is standard practice everywhere. The board has made its decision, Karen said firmly. If you cannot follow our guidelines, we will be forced to consider this a breach of contract and withhold payment. We may also need to seek alternative snow removal services. I felt my jaw tighten. This woman was sitting in her warm car, blocking the main road during a blizzard, lecturing me about fairness while people could be having medical emergencies or losing heat in their homes. Look, I understand you want things done a certain way, but this is a safety issue. I have a system that works. Let me finish clearing the primary routes, and then we can meet this afternoon to discuss any changes for future storms. Karen rolled up her window. I stood there in the howling wind, snowflakes stinging my exposed skin, staring at this woman who had just dismissed me like I was some kind of servant who had spoken out of turn. I knocked on the window again. She ignored me, looking down at her phone with exaggerated focus. I pulled out my own phone and called her number. I could hear it ringing inside the Mercedes, but she declined the call. I tried again. Declined. A third time. She turned the phone face down in her lap and looked straight ahead through her windshield, completely ignoring my presence. Jake's voice crackled through my radio. "Boss, you good up there? We are burning daylight." I walked back to my truck and grabbed the radio. "Yeah, I am dealing with something. Keep clearing your sections, I will catch up." For the next 20 minutes, I tried everything I could think of to reason with Karen Henderson. I called the HOA office number and got voicemail. I sent an email from my phone explaining the situation. I even walked around to the passenger side of her Mercedes and tried that door, thinking maybe she would listen if I could actually talk face to face instead of through a crack in the window. She had the doors locked. Other residents started emerging from their homes, bundled up and looking concerned. A man in his 70s named Mr. Patterson waded through the snow from his house on the corner. "What is going on?" he called out. "Why is Karen blocking the road?" "She wants me to plow in alphabetical order," I said, aware of how insane it sounded as the words left my mouth. Mr. Patterson blinked at me. "What? New HOA policy, apparently. I am supposed to start with Aspen Lane." He looked past me at Karen's Mercedes, then back at me. "That is ridiculous. Aspen Lane is a dead end with 6 houses. Oak Ridge connects to the whole northern section. People need to get out for work and groceries." "I am aware," I said. Mr. Patterson walked over to the driver's window and knocked. Karen ignored him too. He tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his phone and dialed, and I could see her phone light up inside the car. She declined it. "This is insane," Mr. Patterson muttered. He looked at me with an expression somewhere between apologetic and desperate. "Can you just go around somehow?" I shook my head. "Not with this much snow. The shoulder drops off into a drainage ditch on both sides. I would get stuck, and then nobody is getting through." More residents came out. A woman named Mrs. Yao, who lived 3 houses down, needed to get to the hospital where she worked as a nurse. A younger couple with a newborn needed to pick up formula because they had run out and the baby was screaming. Someone else had an elderly mother who lived alone on Pine Street and had not answered her phone all morning. Everyone tried reasoning with Karen. She sat in her warm Mercedes, looking at her phone, immovable as a boulder. By 8:30, the temperature had dropped another degree and the wind had picked up. My crew had finished clearing everything they could reach in the southern and western sections of the neighborhood, but the entire northern section remained buried and inaccessible because Karen Henderson refused to move her vehicle. I made a decision. "All right," I radioed to my crew. "Everyone pull back to the main loop. We are moving to the next subdivision on our list." Jake's voice came back confused. "We are leaving. What about the north section? We cannot access it," I said, looking directly at Karen's Mercedes. "There is a vehicle blocking the route, and the owner refuses to move. I have it documented with photos and timestamps. We will let the HOA board handle it." I took pictures of the Mercedes from multiple angles, making sure to capture the license plate and the blocked roadway behind it. I took a short video on my phone showing the entire scene, explaining the situation for the camera. Then I climbed back into my truck, turned around carefully in the snow, and led my crew out of Willowbrook Estates. Mrs. Yao ran after us, waving her arms. I stopped and rolled down my window. "I am sorry," I told her. "I cannot clear the roads with that vehicle in the way. You will need to take it up with your HOA president." "But I need to get to work," she said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "My shift starts in an hour." "I know, and I am sorry. But I have done everything I can. She will not move." I felt like garbage driving away, but I also knew that I could not sit there indefinitely. I had other clients waiting, other neighborhoods that needed clearing. If Karen Henderson wanted to play power games during a blizzard, that was her choice. But it was not going to stop me from doing my job everywhere else. We spent the rest of the day working through our other contracts. By evening, we had cleared 12 subdivisions, 3 apartment complexes, and a nursing home. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts from Willowbrook residents, but I let them all go to voicemail. Around 6 in the evening, I finally listened to the messages. The first dozen were from angry residents demanding to know why their streets had not been cleared. Then came messages from people who had figured out what happened and were apologizing. Mrs. Yao had missed her shift and gotten written up. The couple with the newborn had finally gotten out by walking half a mile through chest-deep snow to reach a cleared street where someone gave them a ride. Mr. Patterson had called 911 when they could not reach his elderly mother, and the fire department had to bring an ambulance in from the main road, with paramedics carrying equipment on foot through the unplowed streets. His mother was fine, just sleeping heavily with her ringer turned off, but it had taken emergency resources during a blizzard. One message was from Karen Henderson herself, left at 4:30 in the afternoon. Her voice was clipped and cold. "Mr. Reid, this is Karen Henderson, president of the Willowbrook Estates HOA. Your abandonment of your contractual duties today is unacceptable and will result in immediate termination of our agreement. You will receive no payment for the incomplete work performed this morning. Furthermore, the board will be pursuing damages for the hardship your negligence has caused our residents. You should expect to hear from our attorney." I saved that message. The next message was from a man who introduced himself as Douglas Henderson, Karen's husband. "Mr. Reed, this is Doug Henderson. I want to apologize for what happened today. My wife, she gets ideas about how things should be run, and she does not always think them through. I know you were just trying to do your job. I have tried talking to her, but, well, she is very stubborn. Anyway, I am sorry. I hope we can work something out." The final message that caught my attention was from a woman named Patricia Morrison, who identified herself as the HOA vice president. "Ethan, this is Patricia. I am calling to let you know that several board members were unaware of Karen's new snow removal protocol until this afternoon. There was no emergency meeting Thursday night. Karen made that up. She sent out an email this morning claiming it was a board decision, but she never consulted any of us. We are having a real emergency meeting tomorrow at noon to address this situation. I hope you will consider continuing your contract with us once we get this mess sorted out. Karen has, frankly, gone too far this time." I sat in my truck in the parking lot of a McDonald's, eating a lukewarm burger and processing this information. Karen had lied about the board meeting. She had made up the alphabetical protocol on her own. Then she had physically blocked the road to enforce her made-up rule, trapped her neighbors in their homes during dangerous weather, and was now threatening to sue me for not following her fictional orders. This was beyond typical HOA power tripping. This was something else entirely. I called Patricia Morrison back. She answered on the first ring. "Ethan, thank you for calling. I am so sorry about what happened today." "I appreciate that," I said. "Can you tell me what is going on with Karen? This seems extreme even by HOA standards." Patricia sighed, and I heard the exhaustion in it. Karen has been president for 3 years, and every year she gets a little worse. At first it was just being strict about lawn care and holiday decorations. Then she started doing surprise inspections of people's backyards. Last summer she tried to ban certain types of patio furniture because she said they looked cheap. The board has been pushing back more and more, but she is very good at making people feel like they are being unreasonable for questioning her. So why is she still president? Because she is the only one willing to put in the time, Patricia admitted. Being HOA president is a volunteer position and it is a lot of work. Most people do not want to deal with it. Karen thrives on it. She treats it like a full-time job. The problem is she also treats it like she owns the neighborhood. "What about today?" I asked. "The alphabetical protocol, completely made up. She sent an email to the board at 5:20 this morning claiming we had all agreed to it during a phone meeting the night before. There was no phone meeting. When I called her on it this afternoon, she said she had misremembered and thought we had discussed it at last month's meeting. We did not. She just decided that was how it should be done and expected everyone to go along with it." I rubbed my eyes. I had been awake for nearly 36 hours, and this conversation was making my head hurt. "Okay, so what happens now? We are meeting tomorrow at noon to vote on whether to remove Karen as president. I am fairly confident we have the votes. After that, we will need to formally apologize to you and reinstate the original contract terms. I am hoping you will be willing to come back and finish clearing the northern section. We will pay extra for the inconvenience." "I will think about it," I said. "Send me the details after your meeting." I went home, showered, and slept for 12 hours straight. When I woke up Saturday afternoon, the storm had passed and the sun was shining on a landscape transformed by snow. Everything looked clean and pristine, that brief moment after a blizzard when the world seems new. It would not last. By evening the snow would be dirty and rutted, and by next week it would be gray slush. But for now it was beautiful. My phone showed 23 new messages. I ignored most of them and went straight to the one from Patricia Morrison, time-stamped at 2:15 in the afternoon. Ethan, the board voted to remove Karen as president, effective immediately. I am taking over as interim president until we can hold proper elections. We would like to meet with you Monday morning to discuss reinstating your contract. Please let me know if you are available. There was also a message from a number I did not recognize, left at 1:45. I played it and heard Karen Henderson's voice, shaking with rage. You have destroyed my reputation and turned this neighborhood against me. I hope you are proud of yourself. This is not over. You will regret what you have done. I saved that message too. Monday morning I met with Patricia and 2 other board members at the Willowbrook Clubhouse, a small building near the entrance that served as the HOA's administrative office. Patricia was a woman in her early 60s with gray hair and a practical demeanor. The other 2 board members were Raj Patel, a software engineer who had moved to the neighborhood 5 years ago, and Linda Grayson, a retired teacher who had lived in Willowbrook since it was built in the early 2000s. Patricia got straight to business. First, we want to formally apologize for what happened Friday. Karen's behavior was unacceptable, and we take full responsibility for not reining her in sooner. Second, we want to reinstate your original contract with a 10% increase to compensate for the trouble. Third, we are willing to pay for an additional clearing of the northern section as soon as you can schedule it at your premium emergency rate. I nodded. I appreciate that. I do have some conditions, though. Name them, Patricia said. I want it in writing that no HOA board member can unilaterally change the terms of our snow removal protocol without 48 hours advance notice and written confirmation from at least 3 board members. I want a clause that protects me from liability if I am physically prevented from accessing any part of the neighborhood due to actions by HOA board members or residents. And I want Karen Henderson banned from contacting me directly for any reason. Patricia looked at Raj and Linda. They both nodded. Done, Patricia said. I will have our attorney draw up an amendment to the contract. Anything else? Yeah, I said. What happened to Karen after you removed her? Is she going to be a problem? Linda Grayson spoke up for the first time. Karen is, well, she is not taking it well. She has been sending emails to the entire neighborhood claiming we staged a coup and violated HOA bylaws. She has been posting on the neighborhood Facebook page about corruption and personal vendettas. Her husband Doug is embarrassed and apologetic, but Karen herself is doubling down. Has she made any threats? I asked. Linda hesitated. Not exactly, but she did say that people would regret crossing her. I thought about the voicemail on my phone and felt a prickle of unease. You might want to keep an eye on that. People who feel like they have lost control sometimes do unpredictable things. The following week was quiet. I cleared the northern section of Willowbrook on Tuesday, and the residents were grateful and apologetic. Several people came out to thank me personally and slip me cash tips, which I had not expected. The weather stayed cold but clear, and I caught up on some equipment maintenance and paperwork. Then Friday afternoon, I got a call from Marcus. Boss, you need to see this. Someone vandalized the trucks. I drove to our storage lot on the east side of Maple Grove, a fenced area where we kept the equipment during off hours. All 3 plow trucks had their windshields smashed. The word fraud was spray painted across the sides of each vehicle in sloppy red letters. The tires on 2 of the trucks had been slashed. I called the police and filed a report. The responding officer was a young guy named Peterson who looked like he had graduated from the academy about 15 minutes ago. He took photos and notes, then asked if I had any idea who might have done it. Maybe, I said, and told him about Karen Henderson and the Willowbrook situation. Officer Peterson wrote down her name and address. We will follow up, but unless you have direct evidence linking her to the vandalism, there is not much we can do. Do you have security cameras? No, I admitted. Never needed them before. He suggested I install some and handed me a case number for my insurance company. After he left, I walked around the trucks trying to calculate the damage. Between the windshields, the paint job, and the tires, I was looking at least $8,000, probably more. My insurance would cover most of it, but I would still eat the deductible and lose work time while the trucks were being repaired. Marcus stood next to me, arms crossed, staring at the spray-painted message. You really think it was the HOA lady? I do not know, I said. But I am going to find out. I called Patricia Morrison and told her what happened. She was shocked and promised to look into it. An hour later, she called back. I spoke to several board members and we did some asking around. Karen was apparently at a wine bar in downtown Maple Grove last night, making very loud comments about how you deserve to be punished for ruining her life. Multiple people heard her. One of them is a neighbor who lives 2 doors down from me. She said Karen was drunk and really going off about you, talking about how someone needed to teach you a lesson. That is not proof she vandalized my trucks, I said. No, but it establishes a pattern of hostility. I think you should file for a restraining order. I also think we need to document everything in case this escalates further. The board is planning to send Karen a cease and desist letter warning her that any further harassment of contractors or residents will result in legal action from the HOA itself. Over the weekend, I installed 4 security cameras around the storage lot and upgraded the locks on the gate. I also filed for a restraining order against Karen Henderson, providing copies of her threatening voicemail, witness statements about her comments at the wine bar, and the police report about the vandalism. The hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Tuesday night, someone tried to break into my house. I lived in a modest 3-bedroom rambler in Brooklyn Park with my wife Sarah and our 8-year-old daughter Emma. Sarah taught 3rd grade at a local elementary school, and Emma was in 2nd grade at the same school. We had a good life, nothing fancy, but comfortable and secure. I had always felt safe in our neighborhood, even though we had not gotten around to installing a security system beyond basic locks. At 2:30 in the morning, I woke up to the sound of breaking glass. It came from the back of the house, from the sliding door that led to our small patio. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, straining to hear. Silence, then the sound of something scraping against the door frame. Sarah woke up next to me. What was that? Stay here, I whispered. Call 911. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept in the closet and crept down the hallway. Emma's door was closed and I could hear her soft breathing, still asleep. Good. I moved through the living room toward the kitchen. The security light on the back patio was on, casting shadows through the broken glass of the sliding door. Someone was standing outside, trying to reach through the broken pane to unlock the door from the inside. I hit the main lights. The figure outside jerked back and I got a glimpse of a person dressed in dark clothes with a ski mask. Then they ran. I heard footsteps crunching through snow, fading quickly into the darkness of the backyard. I did not chase them. I stood in my kitchen, bat in hand, making sure they were gone. Sarah came out with the phone pressed to her ear, talking to the 911 dispatcher. Emma appeared in her doorway, rubbing her eyes. Daddy, what happened? Someone tried to break in, sweetheart, but they are gone now. The police are coming. Everything is okay. The police arrived within 10 minutes. This time I got an older officer, a woman named Detective Sarah Kovach, who had been with the Maple Grove Department for 20 years. She examined the broken door, took statements, and searched the backyard. She found footprints in the snow leading to the back fence and over into the neighbor's yard behind us, then out to the street. No other evidence. You said you have a restraining order hearing scheduled against someone, Detective Kovach asked, looking over her notes. Wednesday, I said. Against a woman named Karen Henderson. She is mad because I am a snow plow contractor and I would not follow her made-up rules during the blizzard last week. Someone vandalized my work trucks Friday night. Detective Kovach's expression sharpened with interest. Tell me everything. I spent the next hour going through the whole story. When I finished, she closed her notebook and looked at me seriously. Mr. Reed, I am going to be straight with you. What you are describing is stalking and harassment that is escalating toward violence. The vandalism could have been random, but this break-in attempt, coming right before your restraining order hearing, that is not a coincidence. Do you have somewhere else you and your family can stay for a few days? My brother lives in Coon Rapids, I said. We could go there. I think that is a good idea until we figure out what is going on. I am going to pay a visit to Miss Henderson tomorrow morning and have a conversation with her. In the meantime, I want you to document everything. Every weird phone call, every strange car that drives by, anything that feels off. If she is doing this, we will catch her, but we need evidence. Sarah and I packed bags for ourselves and Emma and drove to my brother's house at 4 in the morning. Emma was confused and scared, and I felt a deep burning anger that someone had made my daughter afraid in her own home. Sarah held it together until we got Emma settled in the guest room, and then she broke down in the kitchen while my brother made coffee. Why is this happening? She asked. You plowed snow. That is all you did. You plowed snow and this woman is trying to destroy our lives. I did not have a good answer. Wednesday morning, I went to the courthouse for the restraining order hearing. Karen Henderson showed up with a lawyer, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit, who spent the first 5 minutes trying to get the hearing dismissed on procedural grounds. The judge, an older woman named Margaret Sato, was not having it. Counsel, your client is being accused of harassment and threatening behavior. This is not a complex legal matter. We are going to hear from both parties and I am going to make a decision. Please sit down. I presented my evidence. The voicemail, the witness statements from the wine bar, the police report about the truck vandalism, and now the new report about the attempted break-in. Karen's lawyer argued that it was all circumstantial, that his client had never directly threatened me, and that the break-in could have been anyone. Then it was Karen's turn to speak. She stood up, and I saw that she looked different from when I had last seen her. Her hair was messier, her makeup was not quite right, and there was something frantic in her eyes. Your Honor, this man has ruined my life. I dedicated 3 years to serving my community as HOA president. I worked tirelessly to maintain property values and ensure everyone followed the rules. And he humiliated me, turned my neighbors against me, and got me removed from my position because he refused to follow simple instructions. Judge Sato raised an eyebrow. Miss Henderson, did you or did you not block a public street with your vehicle during a blizzard? It is not a public street, it is a private HOA road, Karen said. I had every right to be there. I was trying to have a conversation with Mr. Reed about proper procedures, and he became hostile and abandoned his duties. Did you move your vehicle when he asked you to? Karen hesitated. I was not finished talking to him. So you did not move your vehicle, thereby preventing him from clearing snow and trapping residents in their homes during dangerous weather conditions. I was trying to establish boundaries and ensure he understood the new protocol. Judge Sato looked at Karen for a long moment. Miss Henderson, I am granting a temporary restraining order. You are to stay at least 500 feet away from Mr. Reed, his family, his home, and his place of business. You are not to contact him directly or indirectly through any means. This order is effective for 1 year, and we will have a follow-up hearing in 30 days to determine if it should be extended. Do you understand? Karen's face went white, then red. This is completely unfair. He is the one who should be restrained. He is making false accusations and trying to destroy my reputation further. Miss Henderson, if you continue to argue with me, I will hold you in contempt. Do you understand the terms of the restraining order? Yes, Karen said through clenched teeth. I left the courthouse feeling like I had won something, but also feeling deeply unsettled. Karen had not looked like someone who was going to back off. She looked like someone who was spiraling, and I did not know where she would land. Detective Kovach called me that afternoon. I paid a visit to Miss Henderson this morning before your hearing. She denied everything, of course, but I had a conversation with her husband, and he is worried about her. He said she has been obsessing over this situation, barely sleeping, spending all her time sending emails and posting on social media about the HOA coup. He said she has been leaving the house at odd hours and will not tell him where she is going. I asked if she had left the house Tuesday night, and he said yes, she was gone from about 1 to 3 in the morning. She told him she went for a drive because she could not sleep. That is the same time as the break-in, I said. I know. But he says her car was not muddy or snowy when she got back, which it would have been if she had driven to your neighborhood and walked through yards. Of course, she could have cleaned it, or she could have parked somewhere else and walked. We are pulling traffic camera footage from the area around your house to see if we can spot her vehicle. In the meantime, I would stay at your brother's place. We stayed at my brother's house for another week. During that time, several things happened. First, Patricia Morrison called to tell me that the HOA had officially banned Karen from all HOA property and meetings, and had sent her a letter threatening legal action if she continued her harassment campaign against me. Second, someone started a Facebook group called Willowbrook Residents Against HOA Corruption and began posting long, rambling screeds about how the board had violated proper procedures in removing Karen. The posts were anonymous, but everyone knew it was Karen. Third, my insurance company approved the repairs on the trucks, and I got them back into service. Fourth, someone slashed the tires on my personal car while it was parked at my brother's house. This was the final straw for Detective Kovach. She is escalating and she is following you. I am bringing her in for questioning. Karen Henderson was arrested on Thursday afternoon and brought to the Maple Grove police station. She came with her lawyer, the same guy from the restraining order hearing. Detective Kovach interviewed her for 2 hours, and I was allowed to observe through one-way glass. Karen maintained her innocence on everything. She had not vandalized my trucks. She had not tried to break into my house. She had not slashed my car tires. Yes, she had been upset about losing her HOA position, but that did not make her a criminal. The lawyer kept interrupting to say the police were harassing his client and that all the evidence was circumstantial. Then Detective Kovach played her trump card. Miss Henderson, we pulled traffic camera footage from multiple locations over the past 2 weeks. On Friday, February 14th at 11:30 p.m., your vehicle was captured on camera 3 blocks from Mr. Reed's storage facility. On Tuesday, February 18th at 1:45 a.m., your vehicle was captured 2 blocks from Mr. Reed's house. This morning, your vehicle was seen on the street behind your brother's house in Coon Rapids. Would you like to explain why you keep showing up near places associated with Mr. Reed despite the restraining order? Karen's lawyer held up a hand. Do not answer that. Detective, Are you charging my client with anything? Stalking, harassment, criminal damage to property, and attempted burglary, Detective Kovac said. We have enough evidence to make the charges stick, and I am betting once we execute a search warrant on your client's home and vehicle, we will find even more. The question is whether Miss Henderson wants to make this easier on herself by cooperating now. The lawyer requested a private consultation with his client. They talked for 15 minutes, and when they came back, Karen looked like someone had let all the air out of her. I want to make a statement, she said quietly. What followed was a confession that was part admission, part justification, and entirely delusional. Karen admitted to vandalizing my trucks because she felt I had sabotaged her reputation and deserved to be punished. She admitted to driving by my house multiple times to observe me, though she denied attempting to break in. She claimed she had only been checking to see if I was home, because she wanted to confront me about spreading lies about her. She admitted to slashing my car tires because she saw it parked at an unfamiliar location and assumed I was hiding from her, which made her angry. I was not trying to hurt anyone, she said, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted things to be fair. I gave everything to that neighborhood and they threw me away like garbage because of him. He turned everyone against me. All I wanted was respect and for people to follow the rules. Detective Kovac listened without expression. When Karen finished, she said, "Miss Henderson, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent." Karen was charged with stalking in the first degree, criminal damage to property, and violation of a restraining order. The attempted burglary charge was dropped due to lack of direct evidence linking her to the break-in, though everyone involved knew she had done it. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal where she would plead guilty to the stalking and property damage charges, in exchange for the prosecution recommending a suspended sentence with probation, mandatory counseling, and restitution. The hearing was scheduled for early April. In the meantime, Karen was released on bail with conditions that she surrender her passport, check in with a probation officer twice a week, and have absolutely no contact with me or anyone associated with Willowbrook Estates HOA. Her husband Doug filed for divorce 2 weeks after her arrest. Life slowly returned to normal. We moved back home after I installed a full security system with cameras and motion sensors. Emma had nightmares for a while, but Sarah and I worked with her teacher and a child therapist to help her process what had happened. The snow melted and spring arrived early that year, which meant I had to pivot to my landscaping services sooner than usual. The Willowbrook HOA hired me for their lawn maintenance contract, and Patricia Morrison turned out to be an excellent HOA president, the kind who actually cared about the community and treated contractors like human beings. Several residents made a point of apologizing to me personally, even though none of them had done anything wrong. Mr. Patterson brought me a bottle of wine. Mrs. Yao gave me a thank you card signed by half the neighborhood. The young couple with the baby brought me cookies and showed me pictures of their daughter, who was thriving. In April, I attended Karen Henderson's sentencing hearing. The courtroom was nearly empty except for lawyers, a few court staff, and Doug Henderson, who sat in the back row looking tired and sad. Karen stood before the judge in a conservative dress, looking small and defeated. The judge reviewed the case and the plea agreement. "Miss Henderson, you engaged in a campaign of harassment and intimidation against Mr. Reed because you felt slighted and disrespected. You damaged his property, followed him, and created an environment of fear for him and his family. These actions went far beyond any reasonable response to a disagreement about snow plowing procedures. Do you have anything to say before I impose sentence?" Karen looked up, and for a moment I thought she might launch into another justification. But instead she just said, "I am sorry. I was not well. I made terrible choices. I am getting help now." The judge sentenced her to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service, mandatory mental health counseling, and full restitution for the damage to my trucks and car. She was also ordered to have no contact with me or my family for 5 years. If she violated probation, she would serve 18 months in county jail. As Karen left the courtroom with her lawyer, she glanced at me once. There was no anger in her expression anymore, just emptiness. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Outside the courthouse, Doug Henderson approached me. "Mr. Reed, I just wanted to say I am sorry for everything you and your family went through. Karen, she had some issues that I did not fully understand until this happened. I should have seen the warning signs and gotten her help sooner. I hope you can move forward from this." I shook his hand. "I appreciate that, Mr. Henderson. I hope your ex-wife gets the help she needs." He nodded and walked away, shoulders slumped, and I wondered what it must be like to watch someone you love spiral into obsession and delusion. The rest of that spring and summer passed without incident. My business grew, and I hired 2 more crew members to handle the increased demand. Sarah got a promotion at her school to assistant principal. Emma finished 2nd grade with excellent grades and made the traveling soccer team. We took a vacation to Duluth in July and spent long days on the beach by Lake Superior. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe without waiting for the next crisis. In September, I got a letter from Karen Henderson's probation officer informing me that she had successfully completed 6 months of counseling and was doing well on probation. She had moved to Rochester to live with her sister and was working as an administrative assistant at a medical office. The letter emphasized that she had no intention of returning to the Minneapolis area and was focused on rebuilding her life. I appreciated the update, filed the letter away, and tried not to think about it. October brought the first frost, and by November we were preparing for another winter season. I had expanded my contracts to include 3 more HOAs and 2 additional commercial properties. The trucks were in good shape, the equipment was maintained, and my crew was trained and ready. I felt confident going into the season, but I also felt the shadow of last year's events hanging over me. The first significant snow came in late November, a modest 6 inches that allowed us to shake off the rust and get back into rhythm. We cleared all our contracts without incident, and I found myself relaxing slightly. Maybe this year would be different. Maybe it would just be normal snow removal work without drama or crazy HOA presidents. Then December arrived, and with it came another massive storm system. The forecast called for 18 to 24 inches over a 48-hour period, with high winds and dangerous wind chills. It was almost exactly a year since the Karen Henderson incident, and I felt a strange sense of déjà vu as I prepared my crew for the long haul. We started Thursday evening, just as the snow began to fall. By midnight, we were clearing commercial lots, and by dawn Friday, we were moving through our residential contracts. When we arrived at Willowbrook Estates around 7:30 Friday morning, Patricia Morrison was waiting at the entrance in her Subaru with coffee and donuts for the crew. "Thought you guys might need some fuel," she said, handing out cups and a box of pastries. "The northern section is getting hit pretty hard by drifts. Might want to make that a priority." I smiled and accepted a cup. "Will do. How is everything else going?" "Smooth," Patricia said. "We have a new protocol where board members text me if they notice any issues, and I coordinate directly with you. No surprises, no made-up rules, no one parking in the middle of the road to prove a point." "Sounds perfect," I said. We cleared Willowbrook without any problems, and by mid-afternoon Friday, we had worked through all our contracts. The storm continued through Friday night and into Saturday morning, requiring a second round of clearing, but by Saturday afternoon it was done. The sun came out, the temperature rose slightly, and the world settled into that peaceful post-storm quiet. I drove home exhausted but satisfied, feeling like I had finally closed the book on last year's nightmare. As I pulled into my driveway, I saw Emma building a snowman in the front yard with Sarah. They waved at me, and Emma ran over as I climbed out of the truck. Dad, come help us finish the snowman. We need someone tall to put the head on." I looked at Sarah, who was smiling and holding a carrot. "You heard the boss," she said. "We need your expertise." I helped them finish the snowman, and then we went inside for hot chocolate and a movie. As I sat on the couch with my arm around Sarah and Emma curled up between us, I realized that this was what mattered. Not the drama with Karen Henderson, not the stress of dealing with HOA politics, not even the success of my business. This moment, this simple, ordinary evening with my family, safe and warm and together. Karen Henderson had tried to take that away from us because she could not handle losing control. She had escalated a minor disagreement into a criminal campaign of harassment because her sense of importance was more valuable to her than other people's safety and well-being. But she had failed. We were still here, still whole, still happy. The following spring, I ran into Mr. Patterson at a local hardware store. He told me that Willowbrook had just completed their annual HOA elections, and Patricia Morrison had been officially elected president with nearly 90% of the vote. The neighborhood had also amended their bylaws to include stronger checks and balances on presidential authority, term limits, and a formal complaint process for residents who felt the board was overstepping. "Karen taught us a valuable lesson," Mr. Patterson said. "We got complacent and let one person have too much power because it was easier than staying involved. Now everyone pays attention. We actually have people volunteering for board positions. The neighborhood is better for it, even if we had to learn the hard way." I thought about that conversation for a long time afterward. There was something almost redemptive in the idea that Karen's breakdown had led to positive changes, that her cautionary tale had motivated an entire community to be more engaged and responsible. It did not excuse what she had done, but it gave the whole situation some kind of meaning beyond just one woman's personal crisis. Years passed. My business continued to grow, and eventually I expanded into year-round property management services. Sarah became principal of her school. Emma went to middle school, then high school, excelling in soccer and developing an interest in environmental science. We never heard from Karen Henderson again, and eventually I stopped thinking about her except as an occasional story I told to illustrate the importance of clear contracts and documented communication. The winter snow still came every year, and every year I still got the same satisfaction from transforming buried streets into clear, passable routes. There was something fundamental and good about that work, about providing a service that people genuinely needed and appreciated. I never took another HOA contract without thoroughly vetting the board first, and I built into every agreement the same protections I had insisted on with Willowbrook. Clear authority structures, written approval processes, and liability protections if someone decided to interfere with my work. I also installed security systems on all my equipment and facilities, because Karen Henderson had taught me that you can never predict when someone will decide their pride is worth more than your livelihood. That lesson was expensive, but it was valuable. Looking back now, the whole situation seems almost absurd. A grown woman blocking a road with her Mercedes during a blizzard because she wanted snow plowed in alphabetical order. A HOA president so invested in her authority that she lost touch with reality when that authority was challenged. The escalation from a work dispute to stalking and property destruction. It should not have happened that way. In a rational world, Karen would have moved her car, we would have cleared the streets, and life would have continued normally. But we do not live in a rational world. We live in a world where people's egos and insecurities can override their common sense, where small amounts of power can corrupt thoroughly if there are no checks in place, and where conflicts can spiral out of control if everyone involved does not make a conscious effort to de-escalate. I learned to recognize the warning signs. The person who cannot admit they are wrong. The person who sees disagreement as personal attack. The person who values being respected over being reasonable. These traits exist on a spectrum, and most people manage them well enough to function in society. But when someone with those traits gets even a little bit of authority and a lot of stress, things can go bad quickly. The snow kept falling every winter, and I kept clearing it. That was my job, and I was good at it. But I was also more careful now. More aware that the work was not just about moving snow from one place to another. It was about navigating human relationships, understanding power dynamics, and knowing when to stand firm and when to walk away. Karen Henderson had blocked my snow route, so I left her buried and cleared everyone else. It seemed like such a simple decision at the time, but it set off a chain of events that could have ended much worse than it did. I was lucky. My family was lucky. Karen got arrested before she did something truly irreversible. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had just followed her alphabetical protocol that morning. If I had swallowed my pride and started with Aspen Lane, would everything have turned out differently? Would Karen have stayed HOA president? Would she have continued to escalate her control until someone else stood up to her? Or would she have eventually burned out on her own? I will never know the answer to those questions, and I have made peace with that. I made the decision I thought was right based on the information I had. That people needed emergency access during dangerous weather, that Karen's demand was arbitrary and unsafe, and that I had a professional obligation to serve the community's best interests rather than one person's ego. That decision cost me vandalized trucks, slashed tires, a terrifying break-in attempt, and months of stress for my family. It also cost Karen Henderson her position, her reputation, her marriage, and her freedom. Nobody won. But at least nobody died, nobody was seriously injured, and the community learned something valuable about governance and accountability. The snow kept falling, and I kept plowing. That was the job. But I also kept the police reports and court documents in a file in my office, a reminder that sometimes doing the right thing comes with a price, and that price is worth paying even when it seems unbearable in the moment. Emma is applying to colleges now, looking at environmental engineering programs. She wants to work on climate change solutions, and I am proud of her for thinking big and wanting to make a difference. Sarah and I joke that she gets her problem-solving skills from me and her determination from her mother, which means she is unstoppable. Sometimes Emma asks about that winter when she was 8, when someone broke our back door and we had to stay at Uncle Mark's house. I tell her the truth in age-appropriate ways, explaining that sometimes adults make bad choices when they are stressed and angry, and that it is important to ask for help before you reach that point. She nods seriously and says she understands, and I hope she does. The story of Karen Henderson and the snow route became something of a legend in the local contracting community. Other plow operators would ask me about it, and I would tell them what happened, always emphasizing the importance of documentation and clear contracts. A few of them had their own HOA horror stories, though none quite as dramatic as mine. We would trade war stories over coffee at contractor meetings, shaking our heads at the absurdity of it all. But beneath the absurdity was something darker and more universal: the human capacity for self-destruction when pride overrides judgment. Karen Henderson was not a monster. She was a middle-aged woman who found purpose and identity in being HOA president, and when that identity was threatened, she could not cope with the loss. Instead of accepting it and moving on, she lashed out, trying to reclaim control through increasingly desperate and illegal means. I have compassion for that struggle, even as I maintain boundaries against the harm she caused. Mental health is complicated, and the line between difficult personality and genuine illness is not always clear. Karen needed help long before our conflict, but she was surrounded by a system that enabled her behavior rather than challenging it. Her neighbors found it easier to let her be,